Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN, of whom more in a bit. Now, here's a question for you. What mode of public transport in London is completely empty during rush hour? Well, that's actually quite a stupid question to ask, because I'm guessing you've already read the title of this video. It's the cable car. It's the cable car. I've been thinking for a while that I needed more up-to-date footage of the cable car, or to give it its more formal title, the IFS Cloud Car. And then Transport for London announced that they were planning to reduce the opening hours because not many people were using it. The cutback in hours is not by much. It will be opening from 8 AM on Monday to Thursday, and from 9 AM on Friday through to Sunday. This kicks in on the 1st of December this year. But anyway, this seems like a pretty good excuse to pay the cable car a visit and kill two birds with one stone. So I got up at an unsociably early hour and headed over to North Greenwich, arriving at that tube station just before 7 o'clock. It's an approximately 5-minute walk from the tube station to the FFS Clown Car station, but I spent a while getting footage before I actually got on, so I guess it would have been about 7:15 when I stepped aboard. And it was frankly kind of eerie. I did not see a single other passenger. At that time, when the buses and the tubes and the DLR are starting to fill up, the cable car was completely empty. If you're not familiar with this particular mode of transport, it runs between the Royal Victoria Dock and the Greenwich Peninsula. It opened in 2012, partly to serve the Olympics that were held in London that year. It's known by many names. Most Londoners call it the cable car. If you're being cutesy, you might call it the Dangleway. When it was sponsored by Emirates, it was known as the Emirates Airline. And it seems that in some contexts, it's known as the Cableway. Now, a lot of people like it. Defenders will point out that it provides a pretty spectacular view high above the Docklands. You can see the O2, Canary Wharf, City Airport, the Royal Docks, Trinity Buoy Wharf, the Thames Barrier, and even the city in the distance. And yes, I would say that it is very worth a trip for the novelty of it. It's a fun ride that gives you a view of a part of the city away from the main tourist drag. The trouble is, TfL seem to have this mad idea that it should also be a form of transport used by regular commuters. You know, like the buses, the tubes, or the DLR. Which it just isn't. There are few, if any, regular commuters. Average ridership in the early mornings is 4. It is on the tube map, but it's currently operated by First Group. Wow, look at that river down there. Did you know that the River Thames is home to 5 species of shark? And during stormy weather, they might get caught up in the surf. Surfshark. We're talking about Surfshark now. Surfshark is a VPN. A VPN is an excellent thing to have in these shady times in which we live in. It is my personal opinion that Surfshark is the most versatile and cost-effective VPN, because it has servers in over 100 countries and can be used on unlimited devices. On the subject of rivers, let's talk streaming. I don't know about you, but I find streaming services these days quite limited. But with Surfshark I can virtually change my location and get other countries' catalogues, getting the most out of my subscriptions. What's more, I can use it to get around region locks, which gives me access to region-specific prices when shopping online, and also to content that's censored. And of course a VPN is an extra layer of protection against online snoopers who want my personal information. What's even better is that it's Black Friday, so that means that now is a great time to get in on that surfsharking action. For a limited time, go to surfshark.com/jago or click the link in the description below or use this QR code for 4 extra months of Surfshark goodness at an unbeatable price. That offer is only there until January the 1st, which admittedly does make for a particularly happy new year. So that's enough talking about being online. Let's go back to hanging from a line. So why, in my opinion at least, does it not work as a regular form of public transport? Well, the most obvious point is the location. Now, in theory, both stops are in pretty good places. To use the official names, IFS Cloud Royal Docks is almost right next to City Hall. It's a short walk from Royal Victoria Station on the Docklands Light Railway. There are hotels, like this one, which I'm told is pretty good. It's near to the ExCeL Centre, host to such jolly japery as sporting events, comics conventions, and arms dealers. Also, when I went there, there was this cool replica Ukrainian Chaika. It doesn't live there, but I just like historic ships. IFS Greenwich Peninsula, meanwhile, is a stop for the major venue that I keep thinking of as the Dome, but it's actually the O2. There are numerous shops, flats, and offices around here. The closest station is North Greenwich on the Jubilee line, which is an important connection through the Docklands. But here is the thing. These destinations are important, but they're all easier to reach by other forms of transport. The Jubilee line runs right into central London. IFS Royal Docks is near to the ExCeL, but it's not as near as Custom House for ExCeL, which is on the Elizabeth line, which again runs right into central London, and indeed all the way to Heathrow Airport. The Docklands Light Railway runs all the way to Bank in the heart of the financial district. So I think it is very unlikely that if you were coming from central London, you would use the cable car to get to your final destination. Okay, smart guy, I hear you cry, but what if you want to travel between those two destinations specifically? Well, the first point I would make is that there aren't many circumstances in which I think you would. But in the interests of research, after riding the cable car there and back, I decided to try doing the same journey by rail. To do this, I went from North Greenwich, one stop down the line, to Canning Town. There I took the Docklands Light Railway one more stop to Royal Victoria. This was not a particularly scientific comparison. I wasn't looking to win a race. I was looking to see if it was worth taking one form of transport over the other if I were a traveller. Now, the journey by cable car took about 10 minutes, give or take. I'm not including time to get on the cable car, to buy my ticket, or to leave the cable car. North Greenwich to Royal Victoria took about 15 minutes from entering the station at one end to leaving at the other. It's possible I could have shaven some time off that if I'd had less waiting time at either of the stations, and Canning Town is not the easiest station to navigate. But nevertheless, it does seem that the cable car has a slight time advantage, although this might be negated depending where your final destination is at either end. But let's also consider the price. The fare on the cable car is £6. There is no discount for a round trip, nor if you use an Oyster card. I'm told there is a discount if you book in advance, but again, I wanted to treat this as if I was a traveller who had decided to use this as a form of transport. Apparently the ticket is good for a £1.50 hot drink at the cable car experience, whatever that is, but that was closed. Now, to be fair, in the grand scheme of things, £6 is not much. £6 won't get you a pint of beer in the average central London pub, and this is far more memorable than a pint of beer, especially the 7th or 8th pint. So again, as a ride, as a tourist attraction, I cannot complain. If you're paying cash, the rail fare between North Greenwich and Royal Victoria is £6.70. But if you're using Oyster or contactless payment, it's £1.80 off-peak and £1.90 during peak hours. It's really no contest. Frankly, it almost feels like it's designed to discourage regular commuters from the cable car. I can't imagine anyone other than tourists choosing to pay by cash on the tube. Oh yeah, also, it can't run if it's too windy. And do bear in mind, we're in Britain. So under what circumstances would you use the cable car to commute? Well, I guess if you lived near one stop, worked near the other, and you had enough money that the extra cost didn't outweigh the hassle of changing at Canning Town. And I don't think there are many people to whom that applies. We are quite a long way east, far beyond the city and beyond even Canary Wharf. hoped-for development around the Royal Docks has been very slow to happen, and in parts it doesn't look much better than it did when industry moved out in the 60s. Once you get away from the waterfront, most of the housing here is low-rise family housing. It is not a place of yuppies and hipsters. Do people still say yuppies? I feel like maybe they don't. If the cable car had been built between Canary Wharf and the peninsula, or if the development planned around the Royal Docks had gone ahead as expected, then maybe there would be more of a market for commuting by cable. But as things are, no. The trouble with it being a visitor attraction, though, is it's not something you're going to do very often. I've been on it a total of 5 times. 2 of those occasions were for filming, the others were because other people dragged me on. Personally, I'm really bad with heights, so I hate cable cars, although other people find my reaction of pure terror amusing, so I suppose some good comes of it. If you live in London, you're probably going to do it once or twice, and that's about it. You might ride it if you're a tourist, but it's quite away from the main tourist centres of London. I suppose you might have a go if you're visiting the O2. This is reflected in the visitor numbers, which have been in decline ever since opening. Overall passenger numbers dropped by more than 500,000 between 2012 and the pandemic. The pandemic has basically knocked all of London's transport figures out of kilter. But in 2021, passenger numbers were about 1.2 million, and the following year, less than 800,000. This is why the cable car is sponsored, which, to be honest, is not a thing I like, and I would suggest is another reason why it's hard to take it seriously as public transport. I'm of the opinion that a station or other transport stop should be named in terms of where it is and what it serves. Emirates and IFS do not reflect this. The fact that the name of the entire mode of transport changes every time the sponsor changes does not imply permanence and reliability. IFS originally signed on for a 2-year sponsorship deal, so presumably it's going to be called something different again in the not-too-distant. There have also been certain ethical concerns regarding the sponsorship in the past. For instance, Emirates had a clause in their contract forbidding the Mayor of London from saying anything critical of the royal family or the government of the UAE. I personally think it's pretty draconian to force a politician not to take a view on political matters, especially for money. It's not much different from bribery, in my opinion. My understanding is that the IFS sponsorship is far less, well, evil. Personally, I don't see much of a future for the cable car. Well, unless something pretty spectacular happens in this part of London that drives ridership up. Apparently it is profitable, or at least it was in 2022, according to TfL themselves. Now, I don't believe that profitability should be the criteria for the existence of public transport, but there is a big difference between, you know, a bus that provides a lifeline to an isolated community, and this. An expensive form of transport that is of little practical use to almost everyone. It's actually one of the few cases where I would support full privatisation. I don't think TfL should have to foot the bill in the event of a sponsor not showing up, which is currently the case. Anyway, those are my thoughts. If you want to ride the cable car and not see anyone else, the early morning seems to be a pretty good time to do it. So that's interesting at least. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do leave a little like, and you may wish to subscribe for more of my rambling thoughts on transport. I would like, as I so often do, to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your support. You are the sponsorship to my financially unwise mode of transport. I'd like to thank Surfshark for once again sponsoring this channel. Click the link in the description below to take advantage of their Black Friday offer. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.